You're listening to The Deep End. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jennifer Walden, entrepreneur, author, and world-renowned plastic surgeon. She made history as the first female president of the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery and is recognized as one of the best aesthetic surgeons in the world, with expertise in face, breast, and vaginal rejuvenation. Beyond surgery, she's built a thriving business, balancing her roles as a leader in aesthetics, a sought after media expert, and a devoted mother of twin boys. In this episode, Dr. Walden takes us through her journey from training at the prestigious Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital to building a powerhouse practice in Austin, Texas. We dive into the mindset behind her success, the art of entrepreneurship and aesthetics, and her key partnerships. And of course, we talk about how she balances all of it while still making it fun. Let's jump in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walden, for joining us tonight. I'm Saeed. I'm joined by my co-host, Hank. It's an honor to have you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Where are you actually? Are you in Texas?
Yes, I'm based in Austin, Texas.
So I was talking to Hank about this earlier. We've had a number of listeners just you've been on kind of our list of people to reach out to, but number of listeners who wanted us to get you on this podcast because again, you inspire so many of us, including those on the academic side, particularly a lot of our female trainees, et cetera, having been the first female president of the Aesthetic Society in such a long history, and just a figure on the aesthetic side that so many people look up to. So one of the first questions that Hank and I kind of are very interested in is I think back to like childhood years and growing up and influences of parents or friends or TV shows, whatever it may be. Like, when you grew up, or like what kind of influences did you have in your early years?
I grew up the youngest of five children. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, and that's where my private practice is. I'm 100% cosmetic surgery. My mom was a surgical nurse when I grew up. She was a stay-at-home mom until I was probably in elementary school, and then she got a nursing license, went back and became a kind of a charge nurse at a day surgery center. And that's where I really initially got touch points with some of the local plastic surgeons in town. My father was a dentist, local dentist across from the high school. And so those were my two main points that kind of entree into medicine. No, people always ask if I have a sibling that's a doctor. I mean, I have one that's a veterinary doctor. My oldest brother is. But I think it was them. It was them that inspired me at first, the work ethic, and I like doing facial aesthetic surgery. I really think it was them. And then so early on, I did get attracted to, say, like in high school, no, junior high actually is where it really all started. In like seventh grade, eighth grade, we did pig dissections, and I was
junior high.
Yeah, junior high, we did this.
Pig dissections.
Yeah,
Hank, were you doing pig dissections in junior high?
I took human anatomy in high school, and we did some pig dissections actually as well.
Yeah, so we started young. I don't know why. I actually think back on that, and I was like, wow, that was pretty young to start that. But like, I think we were in eighth grade, and I went to a private school at this point in time, and I had my lab partner is one of my very close friends. Like, she's still a dear friend of mine here in Austin, but she's hilarious, and she like fled the scene because she's all grossed out by it. She was like, this is amazingly horrible. I'm leaving, and we were doing them like outside the gym on the sidewalk. You can't do this anymore. Can't do it anymore. But I finished earlier than everyone else. I opened that thing up, I pinned all the organs down, labeled them, and she came by and she looked down, and everybody else is working with their partner. She looked down and she said, "You're going to be a surgeon when you grow up."
That's awesome.
So that really, like, just those little words inspired me. Like, I was like, well, I may be pretty good at this. So anatomy.
That was your first facelift in a pig?
Yeah. That pig looked so young. I got done with it. I'm telling you, really, really
That's so
flawless
fun.
skin. But when in high school, I took a human physiology class. It was AP, like a senior year in high school, and I loved it. That's really when I thought, like, I'm going to be pre-med. And I went to the University of Texas here in Austin, and my first day was orientation, and it was a lot of males talking. It was older males, obviously, talking about the health professions office and like just taking all these classes and how hard it was. And I got very discouraged just because I didn't see anyone really look like me. So I went home, and I remember my mom and dad, I said, I don't think I'm going to be pre-med. I don't think I can do this. I mean, it's like they indoctrinate imposter syndrome. I mean, I think early on it's better now, but it was indoctrinated then. And they were like, no, just try it. Like, just tomorrow, just next week, just try it. And I mean, I guess any parent could have said differently, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try it, but I super duper don't think I can do this. And I did. And here I am. It takes just those words from your parents or a teacher that inspire you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, I know Hank's dad is a plastic surgeon too. My dad was obstetrics and gynecologist, but having that support is so important. And especially at a time, like you said, where it's like a male dominated specialty, probably,
Yeah, and we're just so impressionable. I feel like when you think back on it, I remember this with my boys because my boys are in junior high now. I have to put myself and remind myself everything I say is so impressionable right now. Like those years are so impressionable. I feel like so that really kind of guided my pathway.
Yeah.
What were some of your like hobbies and besides school growing up, or what
And
were
so,
you interested
yeah,
in?
but I mean, I was a nerd for sure. I liked studying. I liked reading a lot, but I also was into athletics. So I think I had three older brothers and a sister, and my dad. Like, I was surrounded by men. So I think
In Texas too.
yeah, in Texas, no
Yeah.
less.
Surprised you didn't
Yeah,
play football.
football. I mean, my memories is like dragged to football games and baseball games and playing cutball. So I think that helped me. I mean, I always tell like my male colleagues, I think that helped me like getting along with men because I was around them. Nothing. I told like we had a past president luncheon the morning after I became president, and like they introduced you, and I said, first of all, nothing you say can shock me. I just tell you that. I had three older brothers. Nothing you do or say can shock me. So I wanted them to feel reassured that I wasn't going to come in and change everything up. But yeah, I liked athletics. So because of my brothers, and my sister didn't like, she's very different than I am and didn't really like athletics. She was like more drill team, but I liked athletics. So I played soccer throughout. We were all state, I was all state in high school. And I just loved competitive team sports. So I think team sports and Title IX, I would gave in my acceptance speech in ASAP's when I became president. Like, Title IX came about like in the year I was born in 1971. And without Title IX, I couldn't have been put into these programs, and it was normalized. And I gave a talk, I think for ACAPS. No, yeah, ACAPS soon after I became president. And one of my slides is I got put, my parents were like, okay, you want to play soccer? And I got put on a team with mostly boys. And so it's like me kicking the ball around with the guys. And so I think Title IX really helped women of my generation, and of course future generations, in team sports and your all those classes where we got the ability to show what we could do and show by merit what we could do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, what better than competition than to then enter plastic surgery, which is extremely
Yeah.
competitive to get into. But first off, do you think any of your kids are going to be interested in plastic surgery?
Right now they're pretty grossed out by it. Like I have an office art, which is like, I think for you guys, it's so different. Like, you don't have any, probably well, maybe you do, Hank. The concept of like the OR is so like right here with us in the office. And so my son came in one day and walked by. The door was cracked. We have a perioperative area. The door was cracked, and he walked by with my nanny very quickly to go by to my private office because they had to bring something or whatever. And I was like, Rex, come here, come here, come here. I want you to see what it looks like for a face to be open. I want you to look at the anatomy.
Really?
And so he came in for a second. I mean, he put it, I made him put, for all the people that are worrying, I made him put
How old is he?
but he came
How
in,
old?
this was about a year ago, so seventh grade. And
Uh,
he came in and he goes, Oh no, no. Oh, I'm out. I'm so out of here. And he just walked out. Like, so it was, I was like, no, I mean, the opportunity I'm giving you right here to see you can see the facial anatomy live. And he's like, oh no, I'm out of here. I'm gone. So I left. So I
Yeah.
don't see that right this moment in time, but you know, who knows? Who knows? Every now and then my other son, Houston, will say that he's interested in being like a neurosurgeon. Like out of the blue, he'll be like, I want to be a neurosurgeon. So I was like, okay, well, it's a studying, like time to do homework.
So you named him Houston, not Austin?
Yeah, Houston. I love
I was
because
kidding.
yeah, no, it didn't have anything really the bearing on the geography. I just always loved the name Houston.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what made you then decide? I mean, did you always think aesthetic plastic surgery even early on when you were in medical school, was the goal plastic surgery?
Yeah, you do the rotations, and I did a rotation like on trauma, on general surgery, and like plastics and OB-GYN. Like those were kind of the surgical exposures I got. I really couldn't stand OB-GYN, no offense. I could not. I
Hmm.
just knew, I was like, oh no, 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 can't do this. So I rotated, I loved surgery, all the surgical rotations I excelled at. But it's really when I got to plastic surgery that I realized that was what I loved because of the visual nature of it and the immediate gratification. The fact that I was immediately attracted to aesthetic surgery just because this is back in like 2000. I was in residency, plastics residency, like 2000 to 2003, 2004. And the fact that there weren't many female plastic surgeons out there, cranking it in private practice, but almost all the patients were women.
Yeah.
So males were kind of dictating this
Yeah.
this aesthetic for women, and that was something that I was attracted to. Kind of to I felt a very good vibe about the fact that I had the similar concerns as them. I could relate
Of
very
course.
well to
Yeah.
them. So yeah, so I think the Aesthetic Society, some of the early meetings I got to go to enhanced that. We did an away rotation during our plastics, and Linda Phillips was my chairperson. I know we'll get to mentors, but she sent us away back then to the Baker Stuzen practice in
Yep.
Miami to get aesthetic experience, and that was like the kind of the Willy Wonka
Mhm.
experience, where it just voila, it opened because I could see what private practice was like. That was when I was like, I'm going to do an aesthetic fellowship, and this is what I'm going to do with my life. So you had to see it. I had to see it. So I did those. So I think those rotations are important during residency for you guys to do. You probably have more accessibility locally than we did in Galveston. I mean, but that rotation, and then in that rotation, from that, I decided I'd go to the aesthetic meeting that year, and that was kind of a key meeting for me to go to. I saw, I got to see all the legends presenting, and that was what sealed it for me. And I ended up, matching it at Manhattan 9 year.
Yeah, so I guess it is a good time to ask about, well, your comment about women and how important that is to our women patients is so important. Like I'll get patients who just want a second opinion because they want to hear it from somebody who is living what how they're living.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
sure. Yeah.
and my dad was OBGYN, and he made the comment to me in his specialty that he also got women in his specialty who also wanted just another woman to be able to talk to, which I think is so great, and it's so helpful for even us as male physicians
Mhm.
to have a female partner that can
Oh yeah,
offer a second opinion or whatever.
yeah.
But I guess it is a good time to ask about mentorship because clearly you were at a time where not only I can't imagine how competitive plastic surgery was just in general, but obviously the Manhattan Eye and Ear Fellowship, incredible. And who guided you through that process? Who were your mentors?
So in residency, well, actually in medical school, when I was starting to have an interest in surgery, someone tipped me off that the chairman or I guess back then it was the chief of plastic surgery, was a female, and her name was Linda Phillips, and I should meet her. And that would be important for me to do. And so I went by her office, and I was probably my second year of medical school, so very green, not even have done a clinical rotation yet. And I introduced myself. She must have been so patient all her life, really.
Hmm.
But yeah, so she took me in and she became my mentor even before like clinical exposure. So she would mentor me with like gross anatomy projects and stuff like that. I would do like breast reconstructions on cadavers at an early stage. And so it was really her, and that I could see she was a plastic surgeon, but she was married and she had kids, and she would talk about the kids going to swim meets and taking them. But she had a nanny, like, so I could metabolize, she could do it, maybe I can do it. So I had to see it to really be it. And that was the first kind of time when I realized, I could become a plastic surgeon, because you do have imposter syndrome. Think like, and back then they were really, really, really in Texas pushing people into primary care hard. Like we won't accept you to medical school unless you decide to go
Exactly.
to family practice in the border. And
Yeah.
so I decided I wanted to do plastic surgery, really largely because of the patient population and from Dr. Phillips. And so she became a mentor, and she's been really a whole career mentor, the entire trajectory of my
That's so
career.
nice.
Yeah, like it's incredible. We still, communicate, and I gave her introductory speech when she was the president of the association, right?
Yeah,
American Association of Plastic Surgeons, at their centennial. She
I
became
remember
president.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it was nice. Like there's some reverse engineering then that goes on. So I was able to introduce her, and she was at the aesthetic meeting when I became president. And so I think that has been really key. She's been an ally my entire career.
Yeah, and
And then
what a great mentor too, because just as like figure, not only just as a female, but a mother, and she has. I've met her enough now through. She was actually one of my board examiners, but
yeah,
she just had such a powerful but like professional,
yeah,
just like aura to her,
really one of the most professional, calm.
which is really nice.
Yeah. For sure. And so then as far as like going into practice, the fellowship, how what does practice look like? How are you going to practice? What do you need? What's going to make you succeed? That was really when I got into fellowship. Sherelle Aston was the chair. He's like emeritus, chair now of the fellowship. Charlie Thorne and is now that role, but back then he was for many years after Tom Rees. And so he really helped guide me. That was when I, learned to do facelifting, really got a lot of exposure to facial aesthetic surgery. Running my own fellows clinic helped, and being in New York. But he became more of another career plastic surgeon that has helped me. And he helps me really almost like a coach would help. Literally, if I have like a rhinoplasty and I can't decide between closed and open, or strut graft or not, or this complex case, I'll send him the pictures. We'll look at them together. It's almost like a coach calling the plays for a football team, and he'll guide me and coach me to, what usually is a successful operation. Not to say I can't, do that on my own by now, but sure helps to have a legendary second
Of
opinion.
course.
Yeah, yeah. For all the facelifts he's done, he might say like, "Don't do one thing," and that's the best advice you could ever give someone. It's like, don't do
Exactly.
anything. Yeah, they don't need it. That's the best I could get to. So
Yeah.
he helps me in that respect, and he still does, and to some extent. So those are my two, and I don't need it anymore. Like that, it
Funny.
just is perfect. It's fulfilling that way.
Yeah.
Is he still
I
practicing?
mean,
Yeah, yeah, he still is. I mean, he's a legend in his own time, and like none other. I joke around that like sometimes I'm like my neck is hurting, I'm tired, the boys are. I'm like, I think I'm going to retire before you do. Like I really do.
I
We're
know.
at high risk for me throwing in the flag before you do. But no, he is, and he's a very young at heart person and spirit. Age is but a number, and I may be slow one day and talking to him, and he's like, "I got 3 facelifts tomorrow," and I'm like, "That is amazing!" That congratulations. And he's like, "As long as the patients come, I'll do it," because he feels good. He's very very athletic, and he works out like for the longevity piece as far as like that biohacker on Instagram. It's kind of reminds me of that like that's the function of like working out almost every day of your life, literally. Like he's just super healthy and works out, so he's
And that
still.
matters, obviously.
It does. I mean, I think that number one thing that's helped him, kind of he's very, very healthy. So that's helped.
What do you do from like a workout fitness
Well,
health?
I don't do quite as much. I try, but so what's helped me, because I think I'm a very much a compartmentalizer, and so I will get real busy in my life and my practice and be like, oh my God, I don't have time to work out. I got kids. I get a pass. But what's helped me a lot lately is my sons are old enough that they want to go work out at like Gold's Gym, and it requires it requires a parent go with them. So I have to go, and so it's really a buddy system. My son will make me go. It's an accountability. He'll be like, Mom, let's go work out. And I'm like, no, it's Saturday.
That's
Come
awesome.
on. Yeah, but I'll go and I'll feel so much better. And I'll be like, here I am, 52, and
See, you're
I'm
already
right.
instilling that stuff in them young. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that we're helping each other, but that has helped me more than anything is that the boys have gotten to an age where they want to work out, and so we're members at a couple of gyms, and so that has been helpful. So if I can work out 2 to 3 days a week, that's success for me. Yeah.
You also have boys, so like that's a workout in itself. I
It
have
is.
I have three girls, and I'm gonna have a fourth girl, but I feel like that's
Oh
like
my
one.
gosh. Well, God bless you.
Oh,
That is
thank you.
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, but that's why I kind of talk myself out of it. Sometimes like I chase those guys around all day long. Yeah. But in plastic surgery, truthfully, like it is I mean it's athletic. You have to be in good shape. I feel like long operations or body contouring, I have to keep working out and keep my strength because I want to be able to do all the maneuvers I need to do and the lifting I need to do and the dissections I need to do with the heavy flaps. And so it is kind of a contact sport in the OR, even though it's kind of isotonic and you're doing a lot of this, you're on your feet. I don't think I could do like a desk job. I would literally go crazy just sitting all day. I
Yeah.
gotta.
Well, Saeed's whole bicep workout is just liposuction cannula. That's all.
Yeah.
That's how he does both of his biceps.
There you
No,
go.
that's true.
Repetitive motion. Yeah.
Um, well, the MEETH fellowship is such like a world-renowned fellowship and just program in New York. And even when you're going through it, I'm sure it almost felt like being in Disneyland.
It was incredibly, yeah, that was one of the things I wrote down. I was like kind of writing some notes, looking at your questions. And one of the things about my fellowship that was the most memorable was the fact and I don't even think it may not be like this anymore just because the hospitals have kind of run plastic surgeons out of their hospital to try to bill insurance for cataracts or scoping joints. But it was just a hallway of legends, and no joke. Every single OR door, and back then they kind of would keep the OR door cracked, kind of like I do in my office. But you could go in and see Dr. Jelks tell you about a lateral canthopexy. Jerry Pittman teach you about liposuction. Nick Tabal teach you about closed rhinoplasty. Dan Baker teach you about lateral mastectomy.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sherelle, and that would be any given day. And
Yeah.
I was really like, God bless me. Thank God I did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I know how important this is for me. This is super crucial. So I just, spent a lot of time at the hospital
Wow.
and I learned a whole lot. Obviously that helped that really just shaped and changed the trajectory of my career, that fellowship. So that was the most memorable part, was being able to go into the room and assist those surgeons on those procedures. They're the authors of, or whatever. Doctor, one day I was just having trouble locating the buccal fat pad on a girl I did a nose on. I was doing her buccal fat, and I just was like, oh my God, Alan Matarassa is in the OR next door. I go get Matarassa and see if he could come in here. And he was like so excited. He came in, scrubbed in, boom, found it, taught me a little something. But like, it's great. They wrote the papers, and it's just really memorable.
Yeah. And then how'd you become the program director there?
So yeah, I decided to stay in New York City. I loved being in the city, first of all, because I'd been in Texas my whole life. Been
Very
back.
different from Texas. It's tough.
Yeah,
It's tough to
yeah,
live.
yeah. No, but back then it was I was young. I've always been single, but young, single.
Yeah.
This is like the time of your life where, it's good. This is the good time to go live in New York City, right? Like I always tell like people, especially women, like it's just so fun when you're single and young to go live in the city. This is when Sex and the City was the #1 show, and y'all are probably too young to even know that
No, I
show.
remember it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, look, it was so fun. And
My girlfriend makes me watch it all the time, so trust me, I've seen it.
yeah, I wanted to be in New York City. I loved it. I fell in love with it. It was magical. Like the shopping is amazing.
Yeah.
The plays, just the City of Lights. Now, I lived there 8 years. By the eighth year, I was ready to come home. I just, when you're born in Texas, you can't be there like 30 years. It just would have gone, hard, very hard to do, especially when you start having children and a family. But no, I loved being in the city, and so I decided to stay and practice there, and became the program director. I think they needed one at some point in time. We kind of would go through cycles, early in the guys and girls early in practice for that first 2 or 3 years would do it, and so I came in and did it for a few years. And I think the best part of one of your questions was that what was memorable about that, I think, was like just to see things from the other end, like to finally be on a point where I was on the other end of things and able to meet young plastic surgeons and from all over the country that came to visit. That was the coolest thing, I think, was
And
to
you
be
were
there.
probably getting the stars, the future stars of aesthetic surgery. I mean,
Yeah, that's
that was
that's what's
the
cool
place.
about it. Yeah, because you look back now, I'll have to look at the list of past fellows for various reasons or events or honoring someone, and you look back at it and you realize it really did set the trajectory, and it created some really successful plastic surgeons. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what do you think were like the pros and so how did you even go about leaving there and then starting a complete practice on your own in Texas?
Yeah, so I was there about 8 years, and by like age 39, I decided it was time to have children. That was one of the things. Like, well, we'll get to that question. What you might do differently, but okay. So I was 39, and I went to the OB-GYN, and they were like, I think they tested my FSH and LH, and they were like, you better have children if you want to. You really, really should. And I think it was a little. I mean, you didn't have as
Sounds like
many.
a lot of pressure.
Well, it was a lot of pressure, and there weren't as many. Like I was not. You weren't able to donate your eggs at this stage. When I was that young, that was experimental. Nobody did it. Like, or I would have totally like kind of planned, but I didn't plan for any of that. Like, I wasn't informed on it. So I became informed very quickly because I realized like my FSH was high and there was a lot of pressure. But I did IVF at NYU with a great doctor named Jamie Griffo, who's amazing, and I did that. Just I didn't. I felt like I was timing out. I felt like I needed to do it if I wanted to do it. I wanted to, at least be kind of young. So when I had children, and I gave birth to the boys in 2010 at New York Presbyterian Hospital. I was in New York about a year. I had intentions of being in New York longer. Like, I just didn't know what it was like to have children, right? Like, you don't know until you're there and you're like, oh wow, this is so much harder than like residency even, or there's no cookbook for it, there's no playbook for it. And it was super expensive in Manhattan, obviously, to raise kids. The whole private school system is ridiculous. But I decided to move back after a year. I was just like kind of threw up the white flag. My family was all in Austin. One day I had a conversation with my sister, a kind of reality check, and by the end of the conversation, I decided to move back home. That would be the best for my children. And so what I did at that point in time was I just put my family, my children, ahead of everything, any other selfish notion of I had to stay here and be this New York plastic surgeon, and I put them first, and that has always helped me. I think when you're making decisions, is to put your family first or your children first. That has been turned out to be very successful for me to do. Not like it was a strategic move, but I moved home to Austin. It was a great time to be. I mean, it still is, except there are a lot more plastic surgeons at med spas. But just weren't very many plastic surgeon run med spas, certainly not by female surgeon. So I started a med spa several years after I started my practice. And it turned out to be a real great time to start a practice. Got busy pretty quickly. So That was and started to, I think just being, a single mother by choice with twins, a plastic surgeon, became kind of interesting topic for magazines and media. So there was a lot of media around that time. I just think media begets media, and that became, I did a lot of cool stuff and was on the cover of some magazines locally, and that was fun.
I
So
mean, just listening to you talk about it gets me exhausted.
I
Like,
know, right? I'm like, how did
like,
I do this?
like twin boys,
Yeah,
like, moving from New York to Austin to start your practice
starting practice. Yes, starting fresh.
on your own. And I,
Yeah, it's one of those things you think, like residency of like memory. I liked it and I learned so much, but I wouldn't do it again. Like, right?
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I did it once, and that's the max number of
Yeah.
times. Like if people will say, "Didn't you want another child?" No, God, no, 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 no. But yeah, it was hard, especially like that first couple of years because the boys were so small, and you have to take out some loans, the SBA, deal with all that. But pretty soon you start turning, or at least in this particular time and day, in what my situation I was in, pretty soon started to turn a profit, and that be and then we moved into our own house near my office, which is in Westlake. But I live with my mom and my family home. I
that's what
live.
I was going to ask. Like, who helped you?
Yeah, my family did. Yeah, it was mainly my family. Yeah, and my mom was the
That's
biggest help.
special.
We lived with my mom for the first, probably couple years that I was here in Austin, and a slew of nannies, a slew of hired help, but nothing is like your family.
No,
Someone
not at
loves
all.
them, yeah, that loves them. So that helped, having her to be able to kind of supervise what was going on with the boys until the boys were school age.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I look back and it's kind of a blur. I do. I look at magazine. I'm like, okay, I remember that part of my life. But yeah, it is a blur because it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's just it blows my mind. And then the whole aspect, I think of question after question. I don't think I've had this many questions for any guest so far because like
It's like a
that's such an
puzzle.
interesting story, but like it's also kind of were you stressed at all? I always hear from my friends who go into aesthetic surgery about the being patient until you get to the point where you're turning a profit. But you're opening up a med spa, you're kind of investing with the
Yeah.
hope that at someday
Yeah.
you'll be on
This
the
is
other
where it gets really, really exhausting, is that part. Like, so if you thought, so I mean, I started my practice, and pretty soon, like you have enough patients, everybody has enough patients. You have enough patients you're operating on. And then it starts to be, I guess I'm entrepreneurial, and at least I go through stages in my life. I'm not as much entrepreneurial now. Do I want to buy business? No. But back then, all the Botox, the fillers, the energy-based devices were coming out, especially like the vaginal rejuvenation devices were coming out around 2016. I got asked to do studies. The people would, a company might send a device. So I got very interested in the non-invasive. I had a couple of key employees that I hired at that time that had worked at other med spas that were like maybe owned by a family practitioner and they want to get out of whatever. And those people helped me a lot to build the first medical spa. So you start to understand what passive income is, and that's a good thing to see. If you're as doctors, we're taught not to talk about money, but I'm on a podcast with you guys trying to talk about business. So passive income is great if you can find a nice, safe way to build passive income, and you don't have to like tear your rotator cuff as much doing lipo. Then that's always good as a doctor, because our business is so reliant on us showing up every day, right, and being on every day. And so that helped. And I decided to open a medical spa. So that quickly grew, very quickly, in Austin, because this is a time when there aren't there's, like I said, there weren't as many medical spas as there are now. And now it's a whole different day and age with like nurse injectors and that sort of thing. But I opened one in North Austin and South Austin. And then eventually I ended up buying a medical spa in New York City, which is super exhausting. But I did that in 2018. I grew those medical spas. Long story short, I grew those medical spas. I had a great time doing that. I wouldn't do this really differently. But as the tides have shifted, and this market, I believe, has become a little oversaturated with the non-invasive, and the people that can do fillers and Botox has expanded, right, to beyond doctors, beyond PAs,
Yes.
whatever. It's an oversaturated market, and I kind of could see some of those shifts. You can see them in your business and that sort of thing. And as that happened, private equity started to come knocking on the door. So I ended up selling my medical spas after kind of grooming them to the way I wanted them, standing them up the way I wanted them. Just this past year in August, I sold my New York spa. I sold in April of 2024, and then the Austin ones I sold in August of 2024. I walked away from the New York one, so I sold that to Skin Spirit. And they're a great, great brand. And then I sold the one in Austin to a group that is kind of a wellness group from Dallas Fort Worth, and I'm still the medical director of those. So now it's kind of a good. It's not an exit strategy, but it's good. Now I can do what I want. I can focus on the clinical
Exactly.
aspect. I can be a doctor again, because there was a period of time for
Yeah.
since 2017 that I wasn't just a doctor, but I was also the business owner and the marketing department, the marketing department. I was the HR department, and so now I can go back to just. I'm almost like full circle. It feels like when I just started practice. Like now, all I have to do is just come operate, and I can take care of the patients in the medical spa that want me to inject them. The more advanced injectables, or if the girls have an issue, a esthetician wants me to look at a laser patient, fine, but I don't have to do all of the administrative anymore. And so that's kind of where I wanted that to land. And, you can't do everything, all the time and do it well.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think this is super valuable for a lot of our listeners who want to go into private practice or cosmetics.
Mhm.
You kind of got to see the transition of when maybe there was not as many med spas like you were saying, and
Yeah,
now it's kind of booming, and the market is, as you said, is now expanding to outside of doctors into PAs and even outside of that for residents or people who are just going to start private practice. Do you think it's going to be harder for them to break into this sphere now because they've devoted so much time into, their surgical training? They might not have gotten so much cosmetic experience, and now there's all this social media from, other people who are doing injectables and already
yeah.
have med spas. Do you think there's a different strategy to be successful in this realm
I,
now?
I'm almost certain there is. I don't know exactly what the formula for success would be. If I was putting myself and coming out into practice like, this year or last year, I think it would be a little different. I literally, my training in residency was really truly when Botox got like approved for cosmetic indications, and the first HA fillers came out. So I've gotten to witness this major growth with the Botox fillers, EBD. Just my career has mirrored the growth of that and the launch of all of those things in the United States. So it's been an interesting ride. But if I was coming out now, I think I would definitely. I think for sure you have to get aesthetic training. Somewhere, anywhere, your program director, understands that and knows that. I think they're more in tune with that. The board wants to see more aesthetic cases. They have more aesthetic examiners. So I would definitely learn the trade of aesthetic surgery, because this is your number one thing you have over everyone else, and it really puts you on the top tier, or the top of the pecking order when it comes to injectors and medical spas. That's really what they're looking for. Even if you were going to go into and be employed by a group, or be the medical director of a medical spa chain, which younger plastic surgeons are doing, they really want a well-trained aesthetic plastic surgeon, because you can manage all the complications, right? Only
Yeah.
you
And you can
you
also offer both because you know both sides. You
That's
can offer
right.
something
So
more
you can
invasive or
cross
offer
pollinate.
something less invasive because you know both
That's right.
sides of it and
Yeah.
counsel the patient better.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and this is super interesting to me because I think in other discussions, Saeed, that we've had is we've talked about plastic surgeons losing maybe some hand surgery or plastic surgeons losing ENT to ENT, some of the, that type of reconstruction. Do you think we're also losing in this realm, some of the less invasive, minimally invasive stuff? And is that something that plastic surgeons should try their best to keep and retain, or is it something that we should, what do you think about
No,
that?
I think plastic surgeons should not let go of it. I mean, that's a good question, and I think we kind of try to work on that a lot in the Aesthetic Society and train our plastic surgeons and their staff and that sort of thing. But I think it's important that we hold on to that because we do know how to deal with all of the ramifications and the complications therein. And I think if you let go of it, the train is just the train's kind of already left the station. I feel like with non-physician injectors or non-core injectors. But yeah, we don't want to lose control of that, or we don't want to let that kind of to get away from us. It's so important that you keep that because not well, patient safety, being able to deal with the complications, and then like we're talking about from a business perspective, it just makes total sense because all of those Botox patients and those
Yes.
filler patients, they ultimately want other more invasive cosmetic procedures. I know because I've done both. I go to my med spa and inject as a clinician, and I operate. And going into both of those, these people will ask for Botox, and these people will ask for a blepharoplasty. So it just makes total sense that we would hold on to that portion of our practice or try to groom that portion of your practice. It may not be you, it may just be you in the OR and you're hiring someone else and delegating, and that's okay if your state laws let you. But I think it's super important. Yeah.
I guess that goes to like another question along the same lines. Like, what's your take on um, this external competition from non-plastic surgeons who are potentially even doing plastic surgery or doing cosmetic surgery? We were on with Fuad Nahai last night asking him about potential cosmetic certification or, the need to do an aesthetic fellowship. What's your thought about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically it's very important. I think aesthetic fellowships are important for one, just for from a training standpoint, and two, yeah, ultimately there might be some more kind of cohesive certification, and we were working on that in the Aesthetic Society through our fellowship committee, kind of to standardize. Our current president, Kia Mobasagi, actually spearheaded that, standardizing aesthetic fellowships, the curriculum, making sure that curriculum it meets that standard, and then getting an aesthetic certificate, for that. Those are all important things. Just for largely, this is born out of like good, best practices and patient safety. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, the problem is that the consumer doesn't know any different, and there are no laws to really protect the consumer in that
Yep.
respect. So the consumer is very confused by what is a cosmetic surgeon versus aesthetic surgeon, and what does the word aesthetic mean
Yes.
versus cosmetic. They don't know the difference. So if the cosmetic surgeon is the one that's the whatever, we'll just say an internist, and they start to dabble in more invasive stuff, but they're the one that knows how to do or hire someone better on social media, or do or hire someone better on website optimization, well, they're going to get the patient because the consumer doesn't know the difference. And
Yes.
so I just think it behooves us to understand and learn. Like what you guys are doing is very important. You're talking to people so you can learn and start thinking about these things. But yeah, God, if you don't know how to do Instagram or social media, it's a visual field. Get someone else to. If you're going to be in private practice, it's almost like a have to almost,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
to show your product. It's a product, and you need to show your product. You need to have a brand. Understand website marketing some, and if you don't, whether it's you hire someone, or your spouse, I don't care who it is, or your son or daughter, let them help you, because otherwise the other people will just they'll eat your lunch, because
Oh yeah.
that's the way they'll win,
Yeah.
is through kind of snowing the consumer with misinformation. And there's other more
Mhm.
formal things that we have to do. Is like for the Aesthetic Society, we have to keep a certain number of delegates in the AMA to even keep a seat in the AMA. And the cosmetic surgeons, the American Society of Cosmetic Surgery, that is largely non-plastic surgeon, has a seat in the AMA. The AMA is listening to them. So lobbying. Don't underestimate having a delegate at all of these national governance societies. That even though it's kind of boring and dry, it's actually very important, because the cosmetic surgeons are doing it, and they're not even they're not even trained in plastic surgery really, except for, like kind of 1 week long sessions and seminars and visiting other surgeons and that sort of thing.
Um, Dr. Nahai said something that's going to stick with me for a while, probably, and that's that academics is a state of mind.
Hmm.
And I think we're doing a better job as plastic surgeons of welcoming cosmetics into our quote unquote academic realm, with all of our journals and everybody now taking more of an interest in it. I think that's going to, in the long run, help us when we have to go to bat for, the real cosmetic surgeons or the real aesthetic surgeons versus, I forget which meeting I was at, but there was some article about the percentage of people who use the word cosmetic or aesthetic in their branding that aren't actually plastic surgeons or something like that. And it's a
Yeah.
scary high amount.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong, don't get me wrong, because I'm a part of a group now with Mind Medical Spas. I'm the medical director for Mind, but I work with non-plastic surgeon injectors, and I'm kind of a progressive because I also have to think. You have to think entrepreneurially. Also, I I don't think you have to be a plastic surgeon to inject Botox, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of great
Correct.
injectors out there.
Absolutely.
There are amazing nurse injectors. Shoot, no, my nurse injector does my lips. So I'm
Mm.
not saying you have to be a plastic surgeon to be an injector. I think you have to learn to delegate and be open, actually open-minded, and we need to understand wellness. I think wellness and regenerative medicine is kind
Yes.
of the next foray, and that's why I partnered with a group that's their specialty, and they're super duper smart about it. Anesthesiologist runs it and founded it, and he's great at it because he's great at human physiology, really. But I needed to learn more about that. He wanted to learn more about aesthetics to make this big group. I'm talking about the non-surgical part of my practice now,
Hmm.
but have an open mind. And yeah, I'm talking about plastic surgeons should be the ones doing the surgery, the aesthetic surgery, right? But I
Yes.
think we need to understand and learn to delegate the other, or we will lose it. It'll go away, and we won't have our hands on it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. When you became the president of the Aesthetic Society, I'm sure it was like a huge milestone for everyone and super exciting for you probably too. What do you
Yeah.
think, not only what do you think was the most memorable experience of that whole process, but what do you think? Clearly, you gave us enough where I could probably write a paragraph about why you should have been the president of the Aesthetic Society. But what do you think attracted, like, why were you such an attraction for others to be the first female president of the society? I know that might be hard to answer.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, that there were other very strong women that came before me. Well, I mean, there are a ton of giants that came before me that paved the way for that to happen. But there are people like Lori Cassis who, she was taught. She probably could have been 10 years ago, but it wasn't as open minded as it is now. And I kind of came of age in a time where there was more open mindedness, a little more female plastic surgeons coming out of training, that sort of thing. And I started early. It was, it wasn't a short thing. It's not like I joined last year. I probably, been on the board about 10 years by now. So it took a while to ascend through that. It's a meritocracy. You just have to work hard and prove yourself like everything else in life. And we're used to doing that. But I think it was just that, and giving back and doing things for the profession and the professional society. But also, like you said, I think they also saw a unique personal story too, and that the face of the organization could be with me, or Mindy Hawes, for example, who was the president right after me, who's awesome as well. And has a great personal story. But I think all those things combined led that to happening that way. I kind of always wanted to do that. I always, for some reason, wanted to be in a leadership role in the aesthetic society, even early on. I just saw in those early days going to the meetings how, like, the masthead on the journal was all men, but it was all cosmetic surgery. And we're talking about labias and breasts and that sort of thing. So I always had wanted to be in the leadership role in the society. I think in, like, the most memorable moments of it, obviously the day that you get the gavel and, like, crack it down, it was super. I mean, it's very, very memorable for me because it was kind of a big deal for everyone, for the society too. And all the staff of the society showed up to support me that day, where usually they don't
That's
go to the
awesome.
business meeting. Yeah, it was great.
Nice.
But I think in that year, what I tried to do was I tried to normalize like global relations and international relations. And what I think it was post COVID that we brought back through my year and Dr. Hawes' year and that sort of thing, was international, like memorandums of understanding with international organizations, and learning and kind of saying, like, we have to learn from you, you can learn from us, and enhancing those international relationships. And what became of that was, you can see that we travel all over the world now. And I think our membership is better for that because we have more international members. And on a personal touch point, like, the idea, we normalize just being an ambassador and a diplomat for American plastic surgery. Like, I feel like I'm in a Secretary of State role now that I'm out of the society, because I get invited to all these wonderful places around the world. And that I think that started that. It's like more normalized
Yes.
now. Dr. Hawes does too. Dr. Babasagi does too. And then of course, because I was female, it did bring up like inclusion and
Yes.
diversity, and it normalized that. For the Aesthetic Society, it was a 55-year-old organization at the time I became the
Yeah,
president.
I know.
So it needed just a little bit of shaking up. It just needed to hear about inclusion, and look at the face of the residents coming in now. I think older groups might those older groups in private practice might not see that. They might not even know that 51% are female, or the majority of plastic surgery residents are female now. Like, and
Yeah.
so it brought that conversation to the forefront, and how we had to embrace that, or we would die on the vine, right? Because we've got new membership is your lifeblood. And so I think it raised awareness, and I sought to do that in a way that wasn't offensive to all the men. Everybody still understood it was a meritocracy. There was
Yeah,
nothing taken for granted or tokenism or anything like that.
No, and I love it. Like
it's awesome.
I have three daughters. I'm gonna have a fourth, and it's like it's to think that they can grow up and just do whatever they want and be like as much of a
Yeah.
figure as you one day. Like that brings me so much joy. That's how life, as you said earlier, life should be based off of merit. The period.
Yeah, and they don't have to deal with a bunch of bullshit
No.
stuff that's imposed upon them just because of their gender. They couldn't pick their gender, so
Or anything. Yeah.
yeah,
It's based off
yeah,
of
or
merit.
anything. Yeah, right. So that they can do that. That's kind of, and that's what's nice about why I do these things. Like, I'm a super busy mom, and I certainly don't do everything I'm asked to do. But anytime a residency program asks me to do a podcast or a professorship, I always do it, because it's so important that they see that you can do that, and it's doable, and you
Yeah.
know.
No, I love it. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have one more question. You were talking about your wellness aspect of your practice. I'm just curious what that entails.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, for that, what we started doing here in Austin, several years ago, was we started in on bioidentical hormones, like providing testosterone, estradiol, and we started to do that. And I of course always learn and want to learn, but we weren't getting taught that, and we're certainly not getting taught in residency training, fellowship, or in the textbooks or at the meetings. I had kind of started to go to meetings outside of the sphere of plastic surgery, and I got interested in that wellness part of my practice. We started to do peptides, like started peptides early on. Then a major thing happens called semaglutide, right? So semaglutide happens. Medical weight loss comes along probably about a year and a half ago, was when it really started to get really big, and the like Novo Nordisk and the companies introduced these medicines to the American public. And that it was at that point I realized I really truly think this is kind of the future of aesthetics, is that wellness component, because it's oversaturated. Everything about like looking good and the injections and the facials and all the lasers, it's like oversaturated. So I thought that the wellness was the kind of the way I should diversify, if you will. It's always good to like
Yeah.
diversify your portfolio no matter what you're in. And so I affiliated myself with a group called Formula Wellness, and they're based out of Dallas, like I said. And the medical director and the founder he's a wellness physician, and that's what he does. And they have a super huge practice and five places in DFW, and they bought a place in Santa Fe and Tampa, Houston, and now in Austin. My medical spa is in Austin, and so they're rapidly expanding. But that whole practice of wellness and the medical weight loss and kind of bioengineering and even like just healthy living, like healthy lifestyle, brain, mental awareness. They have all sorts of programs. I can't even describe all of the amazing programs they have, but it's all based on wellness, and we're integrating those with aesthetics. I mean, I just started to do this back in August. So, like, follow up with me in a year, and I'll tell you where we are with like our brain health program or our teen mental health program.
Really
But I think wellness is a big, very interesting part of aesthetics, because we can look good and work hard, but you really, really, learning all about medical weight loss. I think semaglutide and peptides, they've revolutionized
Oh
so
my
many
gosh.
areas of don't you think? Like cardiology's going bye-bye, like
I
it,
heard today that like the bariatric surgeons are like looking for things to do.
yeah. I mean, I think it's changing health. It's changing the face of healthcare. And people are, yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to do the pancreas in 10 years, but we will study that and find out. But I just think we're on the precipice of something very big. And that's why I kind of made this decision at this point in time with this particular group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's
You
awesome.
you alluded to this, or we'll get to our last few questions, but you alluded to this earlier. But what do you think do you have any regrets or anything that you would go back and say, I would do this differently, or I want to instruct this to others?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that the female plastic surgeons and the male plastic surgeons, you guys already know this. You're already so good at this, like the generations that followed me. But I think I maybe, I over compartmentalize. We have to compartmentalize as surgeons and separate like what happened in the workday with what happened at home, and don't take it out on your kid, all that stuff. You have to compartmentalize to some extent, but when I was coming through surgery, really, really taught like, you really need to wait to have not my chairman, not Dr. Phillips. I'm just saying, like in the general male perspective, it's really like taught once you have children after you're out of training, you need to practice your trade, focus on training. And I think that's true. And that's the way I did it, by the way. I just delayed childbearing. And I think if I had to go back and like say in this day and age, it's just more well accepted of like, if you want to have a family, there is no good time. Do it when is right for you biologically, or with whatever relationship you're in. So, and I think you guys are doing that so much better than we did back then. And I think women, it's easier, a little bit easier. It's a little rougher around the edges back then for women in surgery wanting to have children. So I would just say, I mean, would I change it? No, I don't. I really don't think I would change it. But that's one thing that is definitely, looking back, I was just you're so impressed upon by the people that you're trained by, and so things are a little bit more friendly these days, though, as far as that goes.
No,
And
you're
you guys
absolutely
say,
right.
like, I feel like your generation is like, no, I'm going home.
No,
I'm done.
it's
I'm
that
done for the day. Or no, I'm not going to a meeting. I'm going to Hawaii with my family. I think that family, friends, doing what you don't have to devote every hour of your waking day to being a surgeon.
yeah.
And I think you guys are better at that than say my generation and the previous generations were. You have a life.
It's tough too though, because like, and I realize this all the time, like life can be just go, 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 go. Like all of a
You can
sudden
get on a hamster wheel big
you
time.
really can. And then all of a sudden, 10 years have passed and you're like,
Yeah.
oh crap, I'm 39.
That's
Like,
what happened to
you know,
me. Yeah. I thought, and I do, you just think like, you also think things will happen exactly on my timeline. I mean, we're like OCD like that. It's going to happen exactly as I visualize it, exactly on my timeline. And then when something throws you off, like your own health, it just all comes, the house of cards comes falling down. And that's when you have to make these big, I mean, it's such a monument. I could have done it with much less like fireworks and shock and awe than to have like IVF and have twins on my own. And, like, would I change it? No, because it's me, it's my DNA. But like I could have. I look back and I'm like, God, I could have planned that out a little bit better. Like I just put it off so long because I thought I'll be fine. Like I'll be fertile forever. I'll be able to have kids whenever I want to.
But I have so much respect for just mothers in general. Like my mom, God bless her, like raised four kids, and
Uh,
she never worked, but she, I
well, it
mean,
is work.
it's
I just
no,
never
exactly.
would have
It's
thought
more
how
than
much
work.
work it is. It
Are you
is.
kidding me? The day that I'm stuck alone with kids for the day is
Right?
the worst work
It's
day.
like exhausting. Yeah, for
And my
sure.
wife like laughs at me. And so I have so much respect for you just to hear that story. How did you even do it as a single mom and then do all this other stuff?
I mean, I just learned. I think I'm like the best multitasker in the whole world. I learned to just multitask, and so compartmentalization I think can be bad, but in a sense, I think it helped me a lot. So I was able to, I think mental discipline and just like able to leave the boys and go do the best I could do at work, knowing that my successes were their successes. Go back home, be a great mom, you know, start a business. Although I was able to juggle a lot, I think, and that it wouldn't been able to do it had my family not been here, and the like my support system is my family. It's not necessarily like the people it's not like I see the people I went to college with every day. It's like my family and my staff are a huge support system. I see them sometimes more hours in the day than I see my boys. And so they have always been super supportive of me, even during my times of like you want to yell, they know the deal, they know me very well. And so I mean that like having staff that support you and understand you and that's where understand your mission and the mission of the practice. I couldn't have done it without that. And my nanny, like literally my nannies are very important. I couldn't have done it. I've had the same nanny for like 7 years, and we have a live-in male nanny that has been with us for about 4 years. That I mean, I couldn't travel. Well, I couldn't do what I do without them and my mom and my sister, my brothers. If there's a true emergency, they step right in. But I couldn't do it without that really strong support system. And when I'm back with the boys and with my family, that time I've learned that I didn't do this like 5 years into practice. I took that shit home with me, and I worried about the review on Google, and I got upset by I wake up nervous. And I at some point in time, I think it was about when I moved to Austin, you become a mom and you realize how minimal some of those problems are.
Yeah.
And and that's really when I put that away, and I was like, that doesn't matter. When I get home with the boys, I put the phone down, and I spend time with them. And one like final parting chapter, here is that like kind of, getting rid of the administrative of the medical spa, selling that part has enabled me to like go to the boys' games after school. And it might be 4 o'clock, again, like it might be a 4 o'clock eighth grade football game across town. And I would have never been able to do that earlier in my career. But I have taught myself and learned from others how important that was. That part of my life is what I'm going to think about. And as my mentor, like Dr. Eston has said before, you're not going to like lie there on your deathbed and think, God, I wish I'd just done that extra breast augmentation that day. But I
Yeah.
just done one more facelift, it would have been fine. You're going to think about, you're going to think about shit. I wish I'd have gone to the conference for the my boys football team when he was 10. So we want to try to not have regrets. And I think lastly, spirituality has helped me as well. My boys are, I mean, lucky for me, they're very spiritual, and they like church, they like youth group. But I think just that that my family has espoused that in me has been helpful to me to lean on.
That's really nice.
Awesome. So we just have a couple more questions. Um, and we ask this to every guest, and they're kind of fun questions.
Okay.
So do you listen to music in the OR? If so, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I'm gonna guess it had maybe some Dolly Parton. I think I see a picture. What would Dolly do in the background? I was gonna ask if there's significance to that.
So this is George Strait right here.
Oh, wow.
And I took that down because I have him like right here. This is some, I usually have him facing, so when the girls come in my office. But so,
That's fine.
yeah, I like country and western. That's mainly what I listen to. We have, every city has the station that plays like your generation. So we listen to Bob FM, which is like the music I listened to during medical school. It's like the 90s. In the 2000s, I love that. We'll play Bob FM, country western, and then of course we will have local anesthesia cases, and those patients are unfortunately awake and they can hear, and that's when we'll put on, we'll put on like some Sade or R&B or
Nice.
spa music during that time.
Awesome. And then what's your favorite surgical instrument?
My favorite, I think, is I was thinking about this. I have several. My facelift scissors are couldn't do without. Obviously, they're just perfect. Snowden pincer. I like my thimble hook, which is like the way to hold up a skin flap, and
Yeah.
you can kind of see transilluminate through it. There's just
Yeah.
so many utilities to a thimble hook. And then I just got a great instrument, my Tripsot. It's a Tripsot dissector, and it's for like kind of deeper plane facelift when you don't want to do any kind of sharp or bovie in dissection, and it just you can put it in. I did a brow lift with it recently. You just put it in and you spread, and it's kind of like a good method alternative to finger dissection.
Yeah. Those are, I
That's
think
awesome.
the scissors, this was the second scissors we've gotten, Hank, but the other ones,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried to think of something. It's
Yeah.
like, well, it's my headlight, my lipo cannula. I tried to think of something that might be
Yeah.
helpful to know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then if Saeed was to have anything done, what would you do to his face? No, I'm just
you
kidding.
can't answer.
Oh, nothing.
I just-
Um,
Y'all are tough.
well, I really enjoyed this. This is what I expected of it. Honestly, we could probably spend another hour on this call.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you so much. It
Yeah,
shows
thank
like
you.
how awesome
Thank you
you
so
want
much.
to join us. Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to listening to
Yeah, we'll let you know.